Today we're going to take some of those pieces that we learned in 2.1 and 2.2 and we're going to combine those together. And so if you remember back in 2.1, we talked about demand. And so we said that our demand curve was a line that shows us all of the quantities being demanded of a product at every single price, at any of those prices that might fall on our graph. And we had this demand schedule. And so with our demand schedule, we had seen this idea of the law of demand in action, this idea that when the price is high, people really won't demand a whole ton of it. But as that price goes down, we see that people want more of it. As something gets cheaper, we want to buy more. Great. And so that was 2.1. We talked about our demand. Then in 2.2, we talked about supply, right? Our supply curve being the line that shows us how much is going to be supplied at every single price, the amount that people or producers specifically will provide whatever the price is. And that law of supply can be seen in our supply schedule. That idea when something's really cheap, not a lot of producers are willing or even able to produce it. But whenever the price goes up, more producers are willing and able to supply it. And so we see an upward sloping supply curve. Now, what I want us to see here is that there is a very specific point on this graph, and that point is right there. What's so special about this point? Well, that's the point wherever we see that our supply curve intersects with our demand curve. Or what we're saying here is the quantity supplied is equal to the quantity demanded. And this might be a word that you guys have heard before, this idea of equilibrium. It's this balancing point for us. And this is going to be the focus of our supply and demand graphs really from here on out and the importance of this point. And so why exactly is this equilibrium point so important? Well, like we said, it's that balancing point where that quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. And if we put those two schedules next to each other, what you guys notice is there's only one point. It's that point right there at 225, where the amount that people want to buy is equal to the amount that's being made available. And if you notice on our graph, because our demand curve is strictly downward sloping and our supply curve is strictly upward sloping, there's only ever going to be one of those points. There's only one place where those two curves intersect. And so again, we said at 225, we see that we have our equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity of 40 million gallons. And so what that's saying is at this specific price, the amount which consumers are willing to buy is exactly the amount that sellers will produce. And so how do we get to this point? Well, naturally, what we're going to see is that buyers and sellers will move the market toward that equilibrium. And that equilibrium, this is a key thing, write this down, it's setting the market price. Like we see that in our market, the selling price based on the supply and the demand is going to fall at $2.25. Well, why? Well, what we're going to take a look at in the coming videos is what happens if that price is too high, or what happens if that price is too low? How does the market adjust? And so this equilibrium point is sometimes referred to as like the market clearing point, because at that point, we see the total amount that is being demanded is equal to the amount being supplied. So therefore, we have no leftover gasoline. Everybody that wanted gasoline is getting the amount that they wanted, and everything that was made is being purchased, and the market clears.